Most unusual places in the world. Located in Quebec, Canada, this forest has a pretty creepy atmosphere. It might be because the ground looks like it's moving, making it seem like Mother Earth is taking a deep breath. This next one is actually terrifying. Located in Penang, Malaysia, this huge water tornado was getting extremely close to this apartment building. Fortunately, it stopped right in front of the building because it ran out of water. And how about this one? It used to be a hiking area before it got flooded, so everything you see here used to be above water. Imagine being a fish and seeing this appear out of nowhere.
The strangest places in the world, part 1. Firstly, on top of a hill in Pennsylvania, some stones can be found that shouldn't actually be there, because there's no nearby high terrain where they could have originated. These are called the ringing rocks, because whenever something hits these stones, they make a strange ringing noise. Next is the petrifying well in England, where water flows from a rock and turns whatever it touches into stone. As you can see, people often leave items like hats, teddy bears, or even bicycles, which appear to have already been turned into stone. Some people believe there's a mystical power, but the scientific reason behind this is the unusually high mineral content in the water, which forms a hard mineral shell on any object it comes into contact with. And within a few months, everything essentially becomes a stone statue.
Crazy things happening in the world right now. An elderly Romanian woman was using this amber nugget worth $1 million as a doorstop for decades. John Bon Jovi convinced a woman to not jump off a bridge in Nashville. Someone felt that a Louis Vuitton staff member was being rude to them, so they made them count $110,000 in cash over 2 hours, then left without buying anything. This billionaire was caught stealing sand from a public beach. Chuck E. Cheese is now launching a monthly subscription program. An apartment complex billed this woman $15,000 for breaking her lease a year early because she died. Another survey shows that teens are dramatically losing interest in school and hear about college too much. A Lamborghini and a Harley were seized from an unemployed man with unexplained wealth who was later found to be taking advantage of unemployment benefits. The cucumber trend has been blamed for a massive hit to Iceland's cucumber supply. This woman was in agony when she found out that she was allergic to her own period.
The internet's currently going insane over this viral video. The video shows a balloon randomly going down the street with no wind and no one there. It also happens to be at 3 a.m. I mean, check this out. They always say there's a lot of lost souls in LA. My question to you guys is, could it be a lost soul?
Things humans were never meant to see. This is why you don't run into random caves or spaces. Just because it's open to air doesn't mean you can breathe in there. Floods caused by heavy rain in Veneto, Italy. Here is the necessary bathing method for sheep to eliminate parasites. Scientists found weird new marine species off New Zealand coast.
So, the first pictures since Jaguar's major shock rebranding have leaked, and they weren't kidding when they said a change was coming. Now, the leaked pictures show a bright pink and blue electric vehicle that has an extremely minimalistic design. It has an oval-shaped steering wheel, a wide front Rolls-Royce looking grille, and no rear window, probably using cameras instead. And as promised, the iconic Jaguar emblem and hood ornament has been replaced. It's now just a gold plate near the front left of the wheel and the word Jaguar just on the front of the grille. So the question is, what do you think of the new concept? Has Jaguar just saved or destroyed the company?
Moments after this video was captured, this mother threw her 2-year-old son in the dumpster. And you know what makes this case even more heartbreaking? 11 days before this happened, a stranger called the police to report this mother for beating her children in the middle of the street. This all happened on June 6 when 23-year-old Deja Smith called police and told them that she was at the park with 3 kids when suddenly her 2-year-old Jacoby Robinson Jr. disappeared. Police first believed that someone took Jacoby, but after hours of searching, they finally found his body inside a dumpster in the same apartment complex that the family lived in. Investigators began looking through the surveillance footage in the apartment and they noticed Deja walking towards a dumpster on that day, and she has her newborn attached to her on her chest and her 2 other children in the stroller. But in this video, you see one child moving around and the other child who's in the bag isn't moving, and police believe that Jacoby was already deceased at this point. In this point of view, you can't see what's going on, but you can hear the dumpster close and then Deja walk back with only 2 children. Now, this isn't the first time Deja has been accused of hurting her children. In 2022, she had her kids taken away for neglect, but she eventually regained custody of them 2 months before she took Jacoby's life. And just so you know, she also has 2 older children who were also taken away from her. But what makes this case so much more infuriating is that only 7 weeks after regaining custody of the little ones, a stranger saw her beating them in the middle of the street. And keep in mind, these little boys are only 2 years and under. The woman who happened to see the beating called police, and when police arrived, they found that there was no signs of abuse, so then they just left. Photos of the children were later taken, and it shows scratches and bruises all over their bodies. Deja and Jacoby's father were both charged with murder, and it turns out that Deja is now pregnant with her 6th child in prison.
Normal looking photos that have a disturbing backstory. These pieces of yarn in a first grade classroom are the trajectories of the bullets fired by the Sandy Hook shooter in 2012, who killed 20 children and 6 adults. The reason that the angles are pointing downward is quite disturbing when you think about it. Dutch teenager Gary Slock and his mother Petra posted this photo to Facebook moments before their plane was shot down by Russians, killing all 298 people aboard. At first glance, it looks like this woman is resting peacefully, until you notice that that's a car roof twisted around her like bed sheets. She jumped from the top of the Empire State Building and happened to land in this very graceful, peaceful way. This is the last photo ever taken of 18-year-old Jolie Callan, who after this photo was taken was shot twice in the head and pushed off of the cliff by her ex-boyfriend. While this may seem like a normal family photo, just below the wife is a rattlesnake about to strike her arm. She was bitten and survived, but the dog died. This photo shows a man and a woman on the 70s game show, The Dating Game. The man in this photo who won the date with the woman is Rodney Alcala, a famous serial killer. Cheryl Bradshaw, the woman, found him extremely creepy and after the camera stopped rolling, refused to go on a date with him, possibly saving her life.
Understand, it took generational Hall of Fame levels of destruction, violence, and straight up hating for this lion to get his name. You might know him, this is Ntwa Dumela, which is Swahili for he who greets with fire. He sure did. He ran a pride with his brother in Savuti, Botswana, and even though he was smaller, he stood on business. He was like a honey badger in a lion's body. Really think about what that means. Researchers watched him press a whole raging bull elephant at a watering hole. There's also that time he stared down literal death. Black Death, that is. That's their nickname. Imagine Mufasa listening to NBA Youngboy. That's the time he was on. But Ntwa Dumela's defining personality trait, he hated hyenas with generational prejudice. He who greets with fire would pull up to any hyena's front door with smoke. It was literally on sight. He'd even go out of his way to find a hyena leader and erase the matriarch in front of the whole hood. He actually did it so often, he single-handedly dissolved the hyena clans around him. He'd also pick up spawn kills by crippling hyena cubs. Imagine being walking population control. It's estimated that he dropped nearly 40 hyenas in his life, and I say estimated because that's just what they saw. It's definitely higher. The thing is, lions already have no love for a walking laugh track. It's just that Ntwa Dumela took it 10 steps further. Like if his pride was around hyenas or they heard them, they'd be annoyed, but they wouldn't waste the energy chasing around something in 100-degree weather that they're not going to eat in the end. Now let the walking hyena hate crime hear a snicker, and best believe he'll divide them like one. This lion lived a life fueled by pure spite and hostility, and that quantity of hatred has to be studied. Also, the way he passed tense doesn't fit my narrative, so I'm gonna disregard that. The more you don't know.
Scopophobia is the excessive fear of being stared at, and is sometimes referred to as the phobia or feeling that someone is watching you. I'm now going to show you a series of increasingly unsettling photos, and if these scare you, you might have scopophobia. Here's some tips that could save your life that you're actually likely to use. If you're ever outside and your hair's standing straight up, you're about to be struck by lightning. So what you have to do is crouch into this position and brace yourself. If your house ever randomly smells like fish, 9 out of 10 times it's an electrical fire. If you're ever in a foreign country and you don't know the emergency number, dial 112. It's the universal number for emergency. If a tornado looks like it's not moving, it's actually moving towards you. If there's ever a gas leak in your house, don't turn on the lights. A spark from the light switch could blow up your entire house. If you're ever in a crashing elevator, lie down flat to evenly distribute your weight. If you happen to fall into a subway track, look for the little crawl space and hide in there. If there's a deer on a road, you have a better chance of surviving if you drive into it. But if it's a moose, drive into a ditch. Even if you have no service, you can still call 911. Share this video with a loved one to keep them safe.
Interesting people you've never heard of. Darius was arrested 32 times for commandeering buses and trains and pretending to be the driver when he wasn't. Dalton Getty is a man who's been making pencil tip artwork for over 25 years. Philippe Kahn is the man who invented the camera phone back in 1997. This underachieving Princeton student in the 1970s wrote a paper on how to build a nuclear bomb. He received an A, but he never got his paper back because it was seized by the FBI. Patrick Acton made a complete model of Hogwarts with only 600,000 matchsticks and 60 liters of glue. A man named Dalton sued Bank of America for $1,784 billion because he was unhappy with their service. Kevin invented a micronation in the state of Nevada that's called Molossia. It consists entirely of his house, front yard, and backyard. This Argentinian engineer in the 1930s created a rain machine, made it rain in multiple places at once, and then disappeared without a trace.
He used an 87-year-old woman as a mop to clean up dog urine. 56-year-old Leonard Irvin Wayne Tucker lived with an 87-year-old woman as a paid caretaker since 2018. He had also been a family friend since the 1990s. On November 20th of 2022, Leonard had returned home from the grocery store when he became very angry with the woman. Leonard was so angry with the woman that he had slapped her in her face. There was dog urine on the floor and the lady grabbed paper towels to try and clean it up until Leonard grabbed her arm, pulled her to the ground, and spun her body around. He held her ankles and pushed her back and forth to clean up the spot on the floor just like if she was a mop. The whole incident was actually being recorded in the home, and once the lady's family found out about this, they immediately removed her from his care. About 10 days later, the lady's family discovered that she had bruising on her arms and butt. Her family stated that Leonard and the woman never had any kind of problems to their knowledge before this, but prior to him helping this lady out, he was actually in prison for 11 years from 2005 to 2016. On January 5th of 2023, Leonard was arrested and charged with elderly abuse. Eventually, he was released on an unspecified bond.
The weirdest online jobs. There's a company called KO Bayo that offers 10-second vertical videos for you to buy. The videos range from people showing off wads of cash to videos of people sitting in sports cars. The point of these videos are to make it seem like you're the one filming it so you could post it online and flex to your friends. One person who makes these clips for people to buy said he makes $3,000 USD per month.
This child molester in Thailand by the name of Mr. Swirl wasn't caught for years because he used a swirl app to conceal his identity by swirling his face. In 2007, they finally managed to unswirl his face and caught him and found him. Mr. Swirl used to go to different countries, become a school teacher, and then assault the children he was teaching. He did this from country to country, and his longest run was in Thailand. He was a Canadian man by the name of Christopher Paul Neal. To this date, he's thought to have over 300 victims. On top of assaulting the kids, he also made CP with them and had him in a huge hard drive. Some say that it was leaked on the internet, some say it wasn't. They found a lot when they raided him. Now, what I'm about to say next is about to make a lot of people mad. He is now free today. He only served about 10 years in prison in Canada. So from 2007 until 2017, he served. Now he's released and free and living in Canada. Also baffles me is the fact they couldn't unswirl his face for years. You could have picked a random graphic designer off the street and gotten them to unswirl the face in like 10 minutes. Let me know your thoughts on this story.
So one night, this girl, her name is Kaylee, decided to stay home while her family went out to dinner and stayed home and watched Netflix. While watching Netflix, she started hearing noises, little scuffles and bangs. She shrugged it off and thought it was just her dog Rocky. While continuing to watch her show, she starts to hear her mother calling her name.
Kaylee, I'm home alone. Help me, Kaylee.
You see, the scary thing is her mom was still out with her dad and her sister. So who the heck was in the kitchen? Because it sounded identically like her. But then the scary part is she hears her dad start to call her name.
Kaylee. Kaylee. Hello? Hello? Kaylee. Mom? What the hell is going on? Hello?
She turns her phone camera on and goes to investigate. Has she seen scary movies? She goes to look for her dog Rocky in the kitchen and quickly snaps this picture. Mind you, her dog normally looks like this. Kylie's heart starts racing. She runs for her life back to her room.
Crazy things happening in the world right now. A woman from Alabama is suing football coach Lane Kiffin, Donald Trump and his son, along with JD Vance for $1 million gazillion because she's claiming that they stole money from her bank account. The Canadian Army has come out and said that the newest military sleeping bags in design today are not suitable for Canadian winters. This man from Massachusetts bought this house for $395,000 despite warnings that it will fall into the ocean. A new startup wants to sell you sunlight after dark using space mirrors. Schools are putting vape detectors in bathrooms that were paid for by the vape company Juul. This woman was arrested at an Applebee's after arguing with the manager that if she paid $15.99 for all you can eat, that would include her entire table instead of just her. Scientists are saying to never take health advice from the world's oldest people. Workers in Japan are hiring resignation experts to help them quit their jobs. A Florida surgeon is being sued after a patient passed away when he took away his liver instead of his spleen.
The influencer that was caught stealing $500 worth of stuff from Target and then posting it on TikTok was caught stealing again from the same Target. So the first time she was arrested was in October, and then she went on TikTok and posted a video with a huge caption basically saying that it doesn't define her and that she's going to try to do better. Now, 2 weeks later, she's caught again at the same Target that she stole the first time, but instead of stealing $500 worth of stuff, this time it was only $200. I already spoke about why people are so invested in this story, and it has to do with her using the items that she steals in her videos to gain attention and create content. Now I'm kind of questioning if she's doing this on purpose, because the first time she stole, I went on her TikTok and she had around 320 something thousand followers. Now that I went back on her TikTok, she has 422,000 followers. It's crazy how social media works, because you can do something so stupid like this, but you can still gain attention, a following, and a platform.
Imagine you're me scrolling on your For You page in the middle of the night and you see this. Now, this is a doll. Let's get that out of the way first. And this woman married this doll. There you go. There's a picture of them at their wedding. And she has like an entire family of like zombie dolls. But is this not so like unnerving? And also, is that not like a child zombie doll? I understand this is not what my like page normally is about. Like, it's usually like crime and like hauntings and stuff like that. But like, this is freaking me out.
I'm going to sentence you to 20 years in Florida State Prison. That's to be followed by 10 years of probation. Upon your release, and the Florida State Prison was, of course, with all credit for time served, you must initially report to the Bradenton Department of Corrections.
The spirits in this house tried to lead me into a trap. This is one of the most haunted homes in Minnesota, the Warden's house in Stillwater. The spirits in this home are very active, especially if you ring this bell that was once owned by the minister pictured in the portrait above. During an investigation, somebody rang that bell and the portrait fell off of the wall, so of course we had to ring it. The history of this house is pretty interesting. It was lived in by 13 different wardens from a nearby prison. and multiple people have died inside of the home. But the most active part of this building is in the upstairs, specifically in the children's room. The legend of this house involves a woman named Gertrude. Gertrude gave birth to a child, but then shortly afterwards she died. And to this day, people report seeing her wandering the halls, especially upstairs, looking for her lost baby. There's a lot of creepy stuff in this house, like this outfit and actual locks of hair from the boy in the portrait that I just showed you. But the spookiest object is this doll. During our investigation, the tour guide actually had to go to the back room to bring this doll out. She told us that she keeps the doll in the very back of the house because it's so haunted. And in the past, she said the doll has typed out messages on people's phones. There's also this bed that a young man died in from tuberculosis. This is him in the portrait. So let me know, would you spend the night in this haunted house? Our full investigation from this place is on YouTube now.
Another cold case has been solved as the remains of a couple found in a pond in Georgia have been identified by a family in New York whose grandparents disappeared over 40 years ago. Charles and Catherine Romer were on their way home to New York from Miami Beach, Florida in April 1980. 74-year-old Charles and 76-year-old Catherine stopped at a Holiday Inn in Brunswick, Georgia on their way home. They unpacked their luggage in their hotel room, but then they disappeared. The couple and their car simply vanished into thin air. And for 44 years, they remained missing, with their family having no idea what happened to them. Their disappearance was investigated as foul play, but no answers were ever discovered. That is, until last month. On November 22nd, a nonprofit called Sunshine State Sonar recovered a 1979 Lincoln Continental, which was the car that they were driving, from a pond that was between the Royal Inn Hotel and a highway. When the car was removed from the pond, a human bone was discovered. And now the family has confirmed that the remains belong to their grandparents, Charles and Catherine Romer. In a statement, the family said, "We are deeply saddened and equally relieved that our grandparents Charles and Catherine Romer's 44-year mystery disappearance has been solved." They said, "While this discovery brings closure, it has still been very emotional. Sadly, Charles Romer Jr., Jim Romer, and Frank Heller are not with us to share this momentous turn of events and to know their parents will finally be laid to rest in peace." They thanked Jason Suhadra of Myrtle Beach, who, quote, pinpointed the exact location of the vehicle and shared his findings with all the agencies involved. And they also thanked the Glenn County Police, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, and Sunshine State Sonar. Minimal remains were found and their causes of death have not been released, and it's not immediately clear if their deaths are being investigated as foul play, but it does appear that at this point investigators believe their disappearances and deaths were the result of a tragic accident. Rest in peace, Charles and Catherine.
Big seas. Very scary, and it left me feeling very vulnerable. I'm in a kayak, I'm in the middle of nowhere, I'd rather be at home.
The man you just saw in that video was Andrew McAuley. Before he disappeared, Andrew was a pretty well-known mountaineer and kayaker. In his life, Andrew fell in love with the sport of kayaking, and he became very well known in the sea kayaking community because he would set off solo on his small kayak and travel great distances across the ocean. But his biggest goal in life and challenge was to cross the Tasman Sea. Andrew made his first attempt to cross the Tasman Sea in December of 2006, but he called it off after one night when he discovered that he was having trouble staying warm while sleeping in the kayak overnight. But on January 11th, 2007, he wanted to try again. But it was during this voyage that he would vanish into thin air. So he set off on January 11th, but on February 9th, Andrew sent out a distress call. In this call, he said, "Do you copy? This is Kayak 1. Do you copy? Over. I've got an emergency situation. I'm in a kayak about 30 kilometers from Milford Sound. I need a rescue. My kayak's sinking, fell off into the sea, and I'm going down." It's really eerie because if you search Andrew's name, a couple of blog posts pop up that people made in the days after he was declared missing, with headlines that read along the lines of, "Let's hope he is all right." Andrew's partly flooded kayak was discovered on February 10th floating in the sea, but Andrew was never found. Eerily, his camera was still left in the kayak, along with the memory stick that chronicled his journey up until the time that he went missing. That's what the recordings from the beginning of this TikTok were taken from. To this day, nobody knows exactly what happened to Andrew. There are theories about killer waves that came out of nowhere, but his body's never been recovered, and no trace of him, no bones, no clothing has ever been found.